Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special show today. We've got a guest, as you can see, Paul from AAC, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So good evening, Jay, and good evening, Tom. So tonight we don't have, I suppose, any subject matter other than Paul's here. So get your questions in if you want to ask him. And also a little bit later on, we're going to discuss the reefing event on the 26th of October down in sunny Harlow. Which is obviously just next door to where Paul is. So more to come on that later. So first of all, let's kind of do some intro. So Paul, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Paul. Nice to be here. Cool.
So what have you been up to this week, and what's that behind you, other than a fish tank, of course?
I'm at home, but it's where a lot of the seahorses that I produce currently. It's a temporary home. It was an expensive temporary home for a seahorse project that I'm hoping to move back to work very soon. But yeah, it's where all the babies that I've been producing sort of come from for the trade. And I'm hoping to expand on that soon a little bit more as well. So, yeah, so it's only temporary. It's been a long time since I've had a lot of fish at home or tanks at home. And I have to say it's proven very, very difficult with everything I've got at work. So it needs to go back to work, basically. I'm always backwards and forwards all the time. These guys need feeding sort of every 3 or 4 hours. So I'm sort of flying between work and home all the time. And it's sort of proven too much, really, quite honestly. Maybe I'll keep one of the tanks, but a couple of tanks are moving out, and the whole new seahorse project's being built into Unit 5, which is next door to where the shop is at the moment.
Yeah. So hold that thought, because I'm going to come back to later on, because I know that I've seen a couple of pictures of the unit and also the basic setup for the seahorse. So I'll come back to that, put that on the screen, and we can talk about that, because we certainly, I don't think we've ever really discussed seahorses.
Yeah, I was going to ask him about it as well.
A specialised subject, and there probably isn't that many, or maybe there are. But I don't think there's probably that many breeders in the UK, but maybe there are quite a few small ones that are scattered around. You don't hear much about it from a breeding perspective. You see some things on Facebook, and there's the odd group, isn't there, on Facebook about seahorses.
Well, this really came about because of someone that some of your viewers will know of this gentleman. But his name was Terry Evans, which was probably the most famous shop in the UK around about 25 years ago. Still in operation now, but Wet Pets at Romford was probably the best shop there ever was, quite honestly, next to the one that I worked in, which was Home Marine, right? But as I say, there was only probably a handful of shops in the southeast, and Wet Pets was probably at the beginning of it all. And Terry Evans was responsible for things like, to give you an idea of how important this 82-year-old man is now, he was responsible for the lighting spectrum for marine tanks. He was the guy that developed the triphosphor tube showing all the balanced spectrum. He was also responsible for frozen fish food, believe it or not.
Wow.
This guy is like, not many people will know him, who are probably watching, but he was one of the most important guys in our industry. And he came to me around about 2 years ago and said to me, Paul, I'm getting old and I can't cope with it anymore. And he was supplying TMC with all of the seahorses at the time. And he heard that I was thinking, what am I going to do when I retire? And I've been very busy selling life all my life. And I've had this sort of nagging thought in my head that it was time to bring life to the trade rather than just flog it. So at the moment, I wouldn't say it's a commercially profitable business at the minute for the amount of investment I put into it. But it was a necessary evil. I needed to add something to my life to make me feel a little bit more complete. And because these animals are CITES animals, it was incredibly difficult to trade in seahorses. And there was a shortfall in the UK recently, where so much so that we nearly run out of seahorses in the UK. So I went on a little mission, if you like, to make sure that we don't have to worry about the lack of CITES animals in the trade, so to speak. So at the moment, I'm still learning, and that's very refreshing for me, because for me, I need to even now, I need to have something that I need to learn. And the seahorses, if you like, are guppies of the marine world. They're the starting point in fishing for marines. And hopefully, with a little help from some international friends, I'll move into some other species. But you know, the idea of at least trying to make sure that the UK doesn't have to worry about erector seahorses anymore would be, I think, a very good thing.
I was going to ask you how successful you've been, Paul, with them, like in the sense of how many have you managed to breed?
Right. Well, the same as any fish breeder will tell you, it's full of trials and tribulations. It's been, you know, at first you might be 20% of what you know, and then I'm up to about 60% now of what's born. Yeah. You know, and I would say that it's certainly a very, how can I put it, from a hobbyist perspective, of which there are, by the way, Paul, quite a few hobbyists that have bred them across the UK, but there's never any really number. And seahorses have this odd thing, very much like reptiles, whereby you can have clutches where they're predominantly male or predominantly female.
Right.
And one of the problems we had, which no one really knows, there's all sorts of hearsay about, is it temperature? Is it salinity? Is it this? Is it that? As to why you get this different ratio of males to females. But there was a point where we literally were hanging on to a couple of males. And then the other problem with them is that the genetic gene pool's really small. So even in the wild, you might have a gene pool whereby that most of them are either brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, mums and dads. Whereas if you think of a fish species like cod, you know, that are spawning by the trillion, the gene pool's much richer. So seahorses have this thing like crash and burn. They sort of all of a sudden there's plagues of them, and then all of a sudden they're nearly extinct. And you know, because they're basically living in localized estuary seagrass areas. So it's one of those things. They're one of the easiest fish to breed, but they're fraught with peril regarding like bacterial issues and temperature issues and all sorts of things. But it's been a learning curve. And what's really, really refreshing for me is that he's learning something new. And I think any hobbyist out there, you know, especially when you first come into the hobby, that's what makes it exciting. When you first start to get a little bit of success, that's what really, really spurs you to go onwards. It might be that you start with a few soft corals and then you progress into SPS corals, and the first time round you kill them all by burning them with high alkalinity and high phosphate and things. But every time you overcome that next hurdle, it's a feeling of satisfaction. And certainly for me, where I've handled so many animals over the years, but never actually bred anything, that it's spurring me on to maybe do some other things as I sort of fade out of the trade, so to speak. You know
what? No, that can never happen. Well, you're not 82 yet. You're not 82. You got plenty of time.
No. I mean, Terry basically finished up with wet pets at around about, I think, 60 odd years old, and I'm dreaming of the day when I can say enough's enough. You know, so yeah,
we can't have that. I know Tom talks about having hobbyists at the heart of like LFSs, and I know obviously Paul, you're a hobbyist first, aren't you? Probably. Then,
absolutely.
In fact, second.
Well, absolutely, and everyone I've met across UK or across when I internationally travelled, the very, very best. I think a lot of hobbyists forget that we were all hobbyists. We wouldn't have got into this nonsense of running LFSs that 7 days a week, and unless we had a passion for it. You know, very, very few businesses survive in this trade unless there's a passion for the subject.
Yeah, I think you can apply that to any business, Paul, to be honest with you.
I think it's true. You've got to love it. If you don't love it, then there's no point doing it, really.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've got to be on all the time, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's and I remember when we first met, when you had the first unit, now obviously, and every time they came in that store, you was there.
Absolutely.
And a day went past when you wasn't there. And I think obviously now as it's got bigger, you've got a team around you. But I know you're still in that store early in the morning. You're going around, you're having a look at stuff, making sure things are on point and things like that. And that's the side that people don't see.
No, you're absolutely right, Paul. Nothing's more aggravating when I hear things like, "Oh, you're never there anymore." If only people
you're there in body, you're just not there in mind, Paul.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah. But no, I think
with your team, you don't need to be there all the time. There's such a great team.
My team, honestly, we're just talking just before we become live about how me and Tom were talking. Obviously, we're both business owners, about how important people are, and I've just had probably one of the most saddest days I've ever had in business when you lose. So today, one of my number one staff, Dan, who's been with me for about 4 or 5 years, has left today to be back with his family in France. But the team are everything. And there is, it's not just Paul AAC for certain. You know, without having fantastic team, AAC wouldn't be anything. So we need to always remember how vitally important our team is. So yeah,
I think any business is only as good as the people that you've got around you.
Absolutely, totally, yeah. Just like our women.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right, I tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go through the chat, say hello like we usually do, and then Paul, I'm going to come back to you because I want to talk a bit more about seahorses, then pull up the pictures and talk through, what you're going to do in the store, and hopefully evolve in around the future of AAC with the seahorse. And I know other stuff as well. I know a lot of people would like to hear about what's going to go on over the next 3, 6, 9 months. So that'd be great. So just kind of hold that thought. Just going to go through the who's in the chat, shall we say? So Tony was first as always. Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button. Hiya, Tony. Hope you're well. Good evening to your skids, and thank you. I can see in the chat we've got the regulars. Thank you. There's some people I haven't seen for a while, so thank you. And also there's some new people for the first time. So thank you everyone for joining. So hiya, skids. MK Reefer, good evening to you. Johnny Boy, I think as we always say, John's been on more streams than any of us. I think he's done every one of our streams since we started 3.5 years ago. So thank you to everyone. John, you're part of the furniture with your loud shirts. So good evening to you. Hiya, Rama. How you doing? Well. Gazza's Reef, good evening to you. Hiya, Stu. How you doing? Let's just go through. Good evening, Techers. Hope you're doing well. Hiya, Lee. Good to see you all well. UKM 11020. Good evening to you. Hiya, Liam. Oh, it's a new logo, Liam. It's not the shark anymore, so I'm not too sure what's happening there.
It is a shark. It
is a shark.
Yeah,
they're not very well shark.
Yes, exactly.
Not very well.
So hopefully that doesn't mean the shark isn't very well. Aquarium Monster Hearts UK, good evening to you. And we've got the East Coast Reefer. Hiya, how you doing? Hiya, Cotties, good to see you back with us.
Yes, nice.
As we just go through, Push Button Reef, good evening to you. And hiya, Lily. Hiya, hope you're doing well. Hiya, Christian, thanks for joining.
Yes, hiya, Christian, good to see you.
Good evening, Alan. Thanks for joining us. And Reef 216, good evening to you. Hi, Ange. Hopefully you're here to keep your man in order. We'll see.
No, it's Ange. Hi, Ange.
It is. The lovely Ange. Hi, Darren. Hope you're well. And Jupiter's Reef, good evening. And then we've got Reef and Teeth. I'm loving that picture on the logo. So thanks for joining. Hiya, Dave. Good to see you back there. And Norfolk Reefer, good evening to you. Oh, Drippy's in the house. There you go. Eating my pedigree chums. I hope Flange is on tonight. She's the best for me. Oh, dear. Hiya, Rob. Hope you're well. And thank you for the pieces of live rock this week. They're in the tank. So hopefully that will help. Hiya, Sam. How you doing? We haven't seen you for a while. Seen you in the shop. Hi, Jarek. Hope you're doing well.
Evening, Jarek.
What's this? Pontius Pilot 666. Hiya. Hope you're good. And Carl, how you doing? I hope the back is He's recovering.
Hasn't he got another tank again? I'm sure I've seen.
Well, I thought he had two, so I think he got one, and then I think it split.
It's split. Yeah, it's split.
He's getting a Red Sea
no.
Reef for 300. So I think there might be 2 tanks in a week, which is a record for him, I think. We'll see on that one. I think you're back out in the cab or something. I saw you in the van the other day on Instagram. So good to see you out and about. Hi, Alex. Good evening to you.
No.
We're just going around. Reef Rondo. Good evening.
Oh, good to see, mate.
It's on. It's on.
He's got a road light. Oh, you got up in the
right. Wow.
Oh, he's got a flash one.
Yeah.
Got a flash one road.
Nice. Right, just going down.
Beer pressure.
Oh, is it? Oh dear.
It does sound good, though. It does sound good.
Just going through this comment. Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for the advice this week about the tamarin wrasse. Sadly lost the battle, but looking forward to popping down to the store soon and chatting about my next one.
Nice guy. We'll have a chat soon for certain, and we'll get you keeping tamarins for certain.
Is that one of the harder ones, Paul?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things. It's the hobbyist's dream fish. Any tamarin wrasse or macro.
Black and white spot. If I remember rightly.
He had a linear. Yeah, he had a lineatus, but it doesn't matter what one we're talking about. It could have been a yellowtail, could have been a fem, could have been a Lenardi, could have been whatever. But all that family, the ones that break people's hearts. But you know, they're incredibly difficult on shipping. But 9 times out of 10, I find it's one of those stupid marine fish that's got the smallest mouth in the universe, but the largest body. If you look at marine fish and you want to be a dead cert as to whether it's a survivor or not, or an easy fish, look at the relation of the mouth to the size of the body. If you look at a tamarin, it's a microscopic mouth with a massive, great big body. And they need so much food. And a lot of people just can't. It's like the seahorses, exactly the same. You know, they're ridiculous. It's a wonder that evolution allowed them to pass through. And tamarins are another one, but they're very, very prone to bacterial issues. But Norfolk Reefer, we will certainly work with one another. And I've got many of people keeping tamarins, but you might need a bit of a cuddle and a bit of an understanding as to how you're going to do it. So pop in, see the team, and we'll make sure that you're successful with tamarins in the future.
Is it the same with all wrasse, Paul, that they're all fairly bad travellers? And I know some of them, they can get damaged.
Yeah.
I know when you get them in, you look after them and stuff like that. It's not always easy to get them back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, you're absolutely bang on, Paul. So with tamarin wrasse, generally, although we would never sell one with a damaged mouth, I have to tell you that most tamarins will come into the UK very, very rough. They just don't, you know, the one, and also leopard wrasse. A lot of people are probably out there have got things like peacock wrasse in their tank, or leopard wrasse, for example, right? But all of those macro wrasse species or Ananepsis species, that they're all very, very difficult, but they're not impossible. And it's one of those things, a bit like seahorses. Once you know what you're doing with them, actually, they're not as difficult as they seem. But if you start putting those wrasse in with like a highly competitive species, a bit like copper band butterflies, copper bands by themselves, or with a Moorish idol or a yellow long nose, they're easy to keep. Yeah. As soon as we start throwing them in with tangs that are highly competitive, or amphias and species like that, you know, they rarely stand a chance. But there's always the guy out there go, yeah, well, I've got one with a tang. But actually, you should be making your copper band, your Moorish idol, or your tamarin wrasse king of the tank, and you fit the other fish around them. But too many people get, you know, whilst they're compatible in terms of aggression, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're compatible in terms of the amount of nutrient or food that you need to get into. So there's, you know, just because a compatibility chart, which I hate, compatibility charts are ridiculous, you know, because fish psychology, you know, you can have like a fact that a zebrasoma will get on with, say, a leucosternum, like a powder blue or something. It could do, but it got to be simultaneously introduced. But the compatibility chart will tell you it's not possible. So as I said, there's a lot to learn, and the tamarins are notoriously difficult. Yet they are one of those fish that even you walk into any LFS and you'll see, oh, look at that, and they're not too expensive. So they sort of well, unless you're talking about a Lenardi or a Fem, of course, a feminist rat. But generally, most of the tamarins are affordable. But that doesn't necessarily make them a great purchase, particularly for even if you're a reefer with a few years under your belt, it doesn't necessarily make them ideal for you. So it's about getting the environment right, making sure there's plenty of live rock and that old word called live rock, which we don't tend to see so much anymore. But that's where things have really changed. People expect to keep the most delicate organisms without having the appropriate substrate or environment to keep them in. But they're not an impossibility.
We've been talking about live rock, Paul. Do you plan to sell any out of your shop at any point, or is it not possible or profitable?
We sell. We're one of the few stores that have always sold live rock, but we also sell a lot of dead rock as well. And what we tried to do is, because CITES permits on live rock now are very difficult to obtain, and there's some good reasons for that, and there's some bad reasons for that. So it's like captive breeding. Everyone thinks it's going to save our hobby. It's absolutely not. So don't ever fall for that nonsense. Captive breeding is important, but without wild imports, we don't have a future. It's the same with live rock. Live rock, what we tend to do with a shop nowadays is when we do get it in, we might only get about 100 kilos, which in years gone by, that would be like 4 tanks worth, 4 small tanks worth. Nowadays, what we found is that if we can encourage people to use predominantly a dead rock substrate, but include live rock into it, then they'll find that they'll birth a tank much faster and quicker. And you've got to imagine that most beginners that are coming into the hobby that have just shelled out thousands of pounds on a tank, they want to see corals and fish in their tank pretty quick. And of course, in years gone by, as Tom will clarify, we used to have live rock, and within 7 days we'd have cleanup crew in it. 7 days later, fish in it. 7 days later, Fiji hard corals in it.
So spent more time looking at your live rock than you did corals half the time at night.
Absolutely. But as I said there, people always talk about the bad with live rock, but what we can't replicate from dead rock is the diversity of biological organisms, and most of them we can't see with a naked eye. So it's about the diversity of life, and I've never known in my career so many people to suffer with dinoflagellates.
It's so common now.
It's so common because we're starting off with all what you wanted: nutrient poor rock, nutrient poor sand, nutrient poor water. Whereas years ago we'd have like a sweaty sock live rock from your mate down the road, with some dirty sand that we threw in. And we'd start with a nitrate reading, we'd start with a phosphate reading. Nowadays, in fact, I've deliberately polluted the new system that we're building in the Unit 5 for the coral farm. I've deliberately polluted it with loads of phosphate and loads of nitrate so that I can birth the system sooner. So, as I said, most of it, in fact, when we're doing installations nowadays, or my pal does, Joe Chambers from Aquarium Composition does a lot of my major installs now, I tell him, leave the tap water in the weir, because people don't realise tap water is saturated with nutrients and no good for it. But in actual fact, mix that with, say, 98% RO salt water, and you start off with some phosphate and nitrate. So many people are suffering because they have only the best ingredients for their reef tank, whereas we used to have a lot of organically rich live rock, which would always come in semi-polluted and half dead, but that would birth an aquarium really quickly. And that's where I see so many beginners suffering and so many people suffering with their fish species, even as we spoke about tamarins, for example. We need nutrients. The big misconception is I've heard a lot of people say about chasing numbers, But what we don't want to be doing really is you always have to remember that nitrate and phosphate in a reef tank is your friend. We can't replicate oceanic plankton and bacterial mass. So, you know, having some dissolved nutrients is really, really beneficial, you know. So, yeah.
I tell you the other thing, Paul, and we had this discussion because you got hold of some recently. If you can buy some old live rock, obviously it's dead. The difference in that to the manufactured stuff in terms of how porous it is and how light.
You mean the mind. What you're referring to, Paul, is not manufactured stuff so much. I mean, because it could be just mined rock. So, for example, Marco rock is out the Florida region. Is dug out of the ground, and it's phosphate and nitrate free in the most part. But it is fossilized coral reef. Yeah, but even from Indonesia, the DD rock you see out there, that is an Indonesian rock that is fossilized. Yeah. So it was originally coral reef, right? But it doesn't have the same properties. But there was a saying that actually Nav, who you might know, I don't know if you know Nav or not, but a couple of words that he once said, actually, which have always stuck with me, actually. You know, you always feed off your customers and your friends as well. But he said, Paul, as long as there's a touch of the sea, it'll be all right. And what he means by a touch of the sea is we're not allowed to have CITES coral sand anymore. We've got to use artificial sands. Yeah. We're not allowed to have live rock as a rule. Yeah, or what have you. So, but having some dead live rock, so if you've got live rocks that you threw in your shed 25 years ago that for some reason the dead live rock seems to do better than the fossilized rock. So certainly trying to, but I think that the thing that people are frightened of are nutrients, and I really wouldn't. You can always control nutrients. You can't grow them that easily.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to go through some more comments. I'm a little bit behind, and then we'll come back to some other stuff if that's okay. Hi to Zoo. Sorry to hear you're not very well at the moment. Hope you feel better soon.
Dear.
Get well soon, mate.
Definitely.
Right, just going. Hi Dylan. Hope you're good. Very emotional day. Was that because your dad's on the telly, or because?
Yeah.
No, he's referring to Dan. He was very close to.
Yeah. Hiya, Grumpy. How you doing, man?
Good evening.
We've got the 44 tonner in the house. I haven't seen that name before, so welcome.
I have never seen that. That must be someone Paul knows, I think. Yeah, you must have brought him on.
Maybe. Hiya, JB. How you doing? Well. Gareth. Hope you're doing well, guys. Hope you're good and the family's well.
Good seeing you.
Hiya, Hayley. Good evening to you, and good evening, Joe. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining us.
Nice one, Joe.
Good evening, Bill. We'll be at the Jaffa HQ tomorrow.
He's a very good customer, Bill.
Hiya, Stefan. Hope you're doing well.
Loads of people tonight. Loads of people. Awesome.
How are you, Robin? Hi, Robin. Hope you're doing well. And good evening to you, Mark. Vincent, hiya. Like the picture of the Monty plates. Very good. Yeah. Nice. So Robin bought our first seahorses this week from AAC. What a great team and great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Robin.
Right. And then you got Rob saying best fish in a hobby, love Tamarind Wrasse. Absolutely. How you finding the new Nano reef mat, Paul?
Have you got one installed?
Yes, I have. And
I
have to, wow. I'm not usually a big fleece filter fan. Anyone who knows me knows how I feel. I was the first to ever trial the Clarity before the Clarity had a name, before D&D had it. And I had to sign, what do they call it? One of them NDAs, a non-disclosure agreement. And all of that nonsense. And I tested it out. What I will tell you is the following. The first guy to come up with a fleece filter said, you don't have to use it on your main drain. You can use it as a standalone reactor. But unfortunately, a bit like my Siperax thing all them years ago, I said you only needed 100 litres per 1 litre of Siperax per 100 litres. But for some reason, on Ultimate Reef, it went out, well, let's put 6 litres per one. No, I didn't say that. So everyone always has to overdo it. So if you want to use a fleece filter, I've always said, use it impartially. Use it as you feel you need to use it, like filter wool, like anything.
Yeah.
But you know, if we stick to our Berlin, it's about going back to them nutrients again. If we think that you've got to know when to flex the clutch pedal and when not to. But I have to say, the new Red Sea Nano reef mat, wow, what a bit of kit for the amount. Also, if you look at the price of it,
how much are they?
I think it's about 200 quid, isn't it, or something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, which in today's terms, if you think that, like, say you went out and bought yourself 5 decent frags, we're talking about a really, really well designed bit of kit. And it just slots straight in. I mean, it took us minutes to put it. There's a YouTube short we did on our channel that you'll see. As long as it took to film that, as long as it took to put it in the tank and get it going. That's one thing I'll say about Red Sea. They
I love Red Sea.
They are absolutely, when it comes to redesigning, it wasn't a brand new concept, of course, but they looked at probably everyone's model and thought, how can we make it a little bit better? And not only have they made it a bit better, they've brought the software with it as well, which is fantastic, But no, I'm very, very pleased with that.
Yeah. Cool.
It's in store. If anyone wants to have a look, there's one running. So
excellent. Hopefully it answers the question.
Can I just ask you, Paul, about salinity? I know obviously I think you've got a phrase about checking your salinity or something. But like, what do you use? What do you use to check your salinity? Because there's a lot of debate again. I know I was watching Tom's live and stuff like that. No one seems to have like what we believe is a reliable way of testing it.
Right. I can't use that phrase that I might have used in front of otherwise Paul's YouTube thing. But basically, it goes back to Terry Evans, the 82-year-old, who once said to me when I was a cocky 21-year-old, when I used to walk into his shop, he pointed at me and went, Paul, go home and check your salinity. But what he really meant is go away and go and learn the basics before you start cocking off about something else or something. So basically, salinity is without perfect salinity, you might as well be talking absolute nonsense about every other major element in your system. So it's often usually, and funny enough, it always catches us old bastards out as well. I always meet old reef keepers who have been in it for 30 years, and they say, I don't know why this is it. I say, if you check your salinity, and I use it probably, I don't know, once a month with with someone somewhere, and they're not usually newbies. The newbies are on it. They're checking their salinity. They're doing their very best to get it. It's usually someone who's been in it a while, who thinks that what it is. It often comes down to lack of laziness, calibration. So I've never ever been a fan, but even though we have them for sale because we obviously the customer's king, but I've never been a fan of digital salinity readers.
Right.
I really think that they always lead people up the garden path, and there's no. It's like trying to reinvent the hammer. The hammer's been the same for thousands of years, right? It's a lump of wood with a metal thing on the end that you whack a nail in with, right? Well, I think you can't beat. I will name a brand for a change, but D&D's salinity refractometer is the standard. There are other companies out there that bring out refractometers that they take from the brining industry that uses for bacon and hams and alcohol and things like that. But most of those are rebadged, cheap Chinese, low quality refractometers. And one refractometer might look the same as another refractometer. But you just have to weigh them. Just put one in one hand and one in the other hand, and you'll feel that the heaviest one is usually the most reliable. And I think that's down to the amount of copper that's in them, because that's what makes metal is the metals in them are what really give for you that reliable reading. So I would say that I'll have to mention March's one from Fragbox. The Reef Castor one is superb, right? but it's very expensive, March. I think that one's about 70 quid. Right, but the D&D one's about £40, I think. I think the ones you see on eBay are about 18 quid. Well, let me tell you, the ones that you see for 18 quid are like a chocolate fireplace.
You can get them down to a tenner now, brand new.
Can you really? Yeah. Now, it might be that you find one that is a tenner that's good, but I can promise you that mostly just stick to the basics. Find something. Go and check it with your LFS. That's what I would say. Take your refractometer to your LFS, and if they're any good, they won't mind you testing something with that they know is their water, and you can compare your refractometer. But the amount of times I've had stories of where people have come in and go, I don't know why my SPS is dying. And for example, like it'll be that they've got slightly elevated phosphate, but nothing too serious. But their salinity will be up at about 1.02728, where they've not recalibrated it, or it's out of sync, or something like that. It's rarely that it's low. Usually refractometers. Fantastic. But as I said, really, you should be. I'll give you an idea. Around the shop, where we're testing salinity all the time, that our refractometer goes out of calibration every single day. Every time that you put a refractometer on the sideboard and you go clonk like that, that's gone out of that's gone out. You need to calibrate it honestly weekly if you can. Yeah. And a lot of people I meet, that's why I said it's often old boys that do it. I like myself. It's often older generation that forget these things. It's often not the beginners, because the beginners are generally really focused on trying to get those things right.
I think you've got more. I think you're more likely to have issues with a smaller volume of water as well when it comes to skimming, ATOs, water changes.
Yeah.
I think you're a bit fortunate if you're like me or Rob, pelagic, if you've got larger systems, because you've got a lot more sort of forgiveness with things like that.
Right.
There's another thing. There's something that really, really important. If you're using a really high-powered system like, say, Zelements pH Plus, for example, right? Really good product range, can't fault it. Yeah, or to be honest with you, any of the older ones like the Fauna Marin and and things. Remember, it's easy for Tom, myself, to remember this, but for every time we're dosing, we're increasing our salinity.
Yeah.
So because obviously all of our salts are rising together. So we must be. Today we don't seem to see so many calcium reactors in the field and in the hobby. So if you're dosing, you must calibrate your refractometer and check weekly. And if need be, remove seawater and allow your ATO to top up with fresh. So if you're dosing, for example, on a Nano, you need to be even more focused than, say, someone like Tom or pelagic swimmer or someone like myself. So the really important thing, particularly, say, Jay, with that tank, beautiful tank I can see behind you, or Paul over there, if you're dosing those nanos, you've got a far more difficult subject than Tom over there. And if you're going
to get into the land of Kalkwasser, then it's a different story altogether with salinity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and of course, with Kalkwasser as well, you have to be very, very careful with things like magnesium and substrate binding. So, it's I see everyone's rushing to this sort of thing that, I mean, I loved Kalkwasser, but actually I've gone full circle. So I'd used Kalkwasser out of 36 years. I probably used Kalkwasser for 15 of those years. However, I have to tell you that personally, I don't believe that, despite my friends abroad and everyone promoting the idea again, Kalkwasser's some very good beneficial things like binding organics. And, you do initially see a rapid uptake in growth, but long-term Kalkwasser for me is not the answer either, I'm afraid. I've found that there is, how can I put it? A displacement in the ionic balance, if we like, eventually. It's good for a while, and it's good to intermediate, maybe. It's not, I mean, I've sold more stirrers than probably any shop in the UK, Kalkwasser stirrers in the UK. But I would say be careful. Kalkwasser's not the saving grace for any reef system at all. I can promise you that.
Just coming back to salinity, Paul, you talk about calibration. What does that mean? What do you do to calibrate the refractometer?
Well, Tom's actually, if he could show that again, he's got the best thing in front of him. He's got the distilled water. Generally, even if you've got reverse osmosis water.
I use RO to do it each time.
I mean, what Tom's got in front of him there is the best, right? But even just using a good quality, remember, if you go to an LFS to pick up your seawater and RO, always make sure that you mark one as reverse osmosis and one obviously as salt water.
Yeah.
So if you go and get both never mix the two barrels. Keep the barrels the same. That way you'll always know what the TDS is, but don't ever trust a handheld meter, right? But a good dealer will always declare their TDS and show their cards if need be. But always keep, and you can use that. The reason why I say that is you can use the reverse osmosis from that barrel to calibrate your thing. If you've had seawater in it, there could always be a contamination issue. But reverse osmosis is usually good enough. That's what we would use on a day-to-day basis. But if you want to be really cool, use what Tom's doing.
Distilled.
Distilled.
It's not expensive. Just make sure you don't contaminate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I use RO, and I do it because you said a small tank. Every time I do a water change, so I do kind of 3, 4, 5 litres at a time. I make sure the salt is always at the 2.5.
Yeah.
And then I test it. When I had the bigger tank, the 5 foot, I didn't bother hardly at all.
No,
because there was a lot more room for error on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't dose this purely; it's water changes, and that's fine for now.
I just use the lid of it, as daft as it sounds, as the vessel to carry the water to whatever I'm putting it on, and I don't let anything else come into contamination with it, and that's it. Lid back on and forget about it.
Yeah. I think the one thing because obviously I love Jay's tank. But Jay's tank is symbolic of what most hobbyists want when they come into my shop now. Most people can't afford the great big reef tanks these days. Yeah. So what Jay's got behind him is what we're selling all the time. And that's the tank they want. They want the torch corals. They want the Holy Grail micromussa. They want all of these fancy corals in it. That's what they can afford generally. But that tank, that's on a knife's edge. And there's another guy, actually, I don't know, I'll give him a mention, called Fluval Reef, who's now H2O Reefer on Instagram. He always has amazing tanks. I mean, he's one of the best. He comes in the store all the time. He's got
a beautiful tank.
It's stunning. But I always worry about it because it's such a small volume of water and he's dosing it. And I know, Jay, you're probably dosing as well.
Yeah, I dose mine,
So for you guys out there, there was sort of setting the standard for what an interim or beginner or an interim that's the thing that you need to stress is like, if you're going to do this and you want to put torch corals in a nano reef tank or you want to put SPS corals in it, you best be checking your salinity every week and making sure you're calibrated properly. Whereas Tom, he can afford to relax a little bit, so
really.
He doesn't come across that way sometimes.
But certainly on the smaller nano reef systems. Are high end. I mean, that's what we're talking about these days. Is high end nano. If you have a mixed reefs, perhaps with a few soft corals like Paul may have got up there and some zoanthids and it's less stress. But the more stony corals you include in a nano, the more important salinity becomes.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Right, I'm just going to go through some more comments if that's okay. Credit when credit's due. Paul's got a great selection of rock in his shop. Thank you for that. Only tangs I've had issues with alongside my Moorish and Camphorus, just too aggressive to have them acting naturally as he should be. Okay, fair enough. So what we've got here. Would love either. I have a peacock, false leopard, yellow, multicolour. So the last time I won and most desired, just got unlucky this time around.
Yeah,
absolutely. I thought Barry washed his hands in the tank to seed it.
Well, I know he's watching tonight, Rob, so I'm sure he'll take that with you when he sees you.
He's giving me some right Slavron group chat, these lot.
Paul has sold all his live rock in the tanks behind him. I don't have wrasses. Unfortunately, my mandarin is more important to me than adding a competitive fish for its food source. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the correct thinking. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just bought 25-year-old Fiji live rock from a tank breakdown.
Fantastic.
Good. Glad Paul said about the tap water in weir box. I was too idle to siphon it out. There we go. There's a tip.
Now that is reassuring.
Oh dear. Right. What else have we got here? Kelvin Lynch. Sorry to hear Dan has gone. And some other saying about sorry to hear Dan has gone. What have we got down here?
Wish him luck. Yeah, good
I
luck.
never understood Cyperax or looked into it enough, really. Is it to help with bacteria nutrient control? Because it was quite big. It spiked, was it 4 or 5 years before COVID, wasn't it? All of a sudden, you were selling loads of it.
People got OCD with it, having to get it all with each other.
There's something there because basically what it was is Tony D&D and me spotted something in the Brazil Reef Club around about 10 years ago. It was about 10 years ago when it all started kicking.
Okay.
And what we saw was, I'd used Cyperax around about 25 years ago for tropical freshwater and for African cichlids and things like that. And there's no getting away from it, chaps. That is the best biological filter media that has ever existed on the planet. They can go on all they want about any other media, but there's nothing as good as a biological media as Cyperax. In fact, the new seahorse system I've just set up, I've just used around about 700 quid's worth of Cyperax in one of the bio towels. Cyperax is sintered glass. It means it's pH neutral, whereas a lot of the biological filter medias that we see out there are aluminium based. Right, so there's nothing too wrong with using aluminium-based biological media in a lot of systems, but there's nothing as good or as expensive to make as Cyperax. Cyperax is made from soda ash and sand and things like that, and it's fired in kilns in Germany. It costs a packet to produce it. Originally, it was the company Schott. You might remember the old jackets years ago, the ski jackets.
I do remember that.
Right, so Schott owned it originally, and it was all to do with fibers and things like that. Honestly, there's the only scientific research that's ever been done fully has been on Cyperax when it comes to biological media. And it's one of those products which I can promise you is the very best that exists on this planet. And I still use it now on the AAC fish system. There's around about, oh, God knows. I mean, there's got to be 80 kilos of it on the AAC fish system. Wow. But it will hold bacteria. What's really special about it is the perfect pore size on the structures, on the hoops. It's sort of a bit of a misconception that on a piece of live rock, for example, that anaerobic activity lives on the inside and aerobics are on the outside. No, they don't. They live on a thin skin above and below one another. And the porosity of Cyperax, what makes it special, the hula hoops, if you like, is that, and it's been copied many times, is that the water can flow through it easily. So we're not interested in trapping dirt. A lot of filter media is based around trapping dirt. This doesn't need, we want to avoid trapping dirt. And the reason why people were, like myself, were very anal about stacking it in tubes and things like that, so that water travelled through it without setting sediment on it. But even the AAC DT still has around about 65 litres running on it. Slowly rotting now after 8 or 9 years use. But no, it's one of those old-fashioned products. But anyone who knows anything about biological media will tell you that is the very best there is, and still to this day. Unfortunately, it's become so expensive now because of energy costs in Germany to fire it. But I mean, there's a whole factory in Germany that makes that. But if you're setting a fish-only system up, that's the #1 product.
But you know, you're saying about that, just before we move on piece, off topic, is that was a massive thing, and I remember that when it came out. But nobody ever explained it like you did. And that is the majority reason, I would say, or the majority of reasons why other products just don't get used or fall off, because people don't understand them enough. Because they're not educated.
It was actually one of the longest ever threads on Ultimate Reef.
Right.
If you go back and type Cyperax into Ultimate Reef, you will see a thread that went on forever and ever. But unfortunately, Tony and me sort of started the idea. We watched it. So it's not my idea, first of all, about stacking.
No, I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying I've never heard it said like that, is all I'm saying. Yeah. And, you know, I think far too often people say, try that, try the other, and without really understanding it, you know, for its guts, or understanding it for what it does.
A very clever South American reef keeper from Brazil Reef Club. He was the guy that inspired me. I can't remember his name, but he had big tubs of it that were linked to his massive system he had. It was something like David Saxby's, but with about 10 baths of it that was joined to it. But it was one of those things that I saw him doing. And as soon as I understood what he was doing, he was like, so in the past, we used to get Cyprax in bags and throw it in canister filters. But invariably, what would happen is all the pores would get blocked over time. And this very expensive Mercedes filter media would then become non-viable. And then you would hear about people trying to clean it, putting it in microwaves or bleaching it and doing all sorts of things. Well, if you stack it that way, you get the best effect from it for the longest period of time. But it's
still getting contact time, but flushing.
I mean, I'll give you an idea. In the first year that I started promoting that, without being too vulgar, I'd sold £16,000 worth of it. That would tell you how popular it was amongst a certain group of people. So it was one of the most ripping products of AAC's history, and certainly one of the products that actually put us on the map. Not because it was my idea, but because Tony D&D, who's a very clever guy, if any of you know him, right? He said, "Oh, Paul, look at this," and I looked at it and I thought, "Oh, wow!" And honestly, to this day, AAC's fish systems all run on it, and I still use it. I've just set up another one. It's not trendy. It's not trendy. It's not max spec bio balls, or it's not.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Paul, there's a comment later on, and someone says, "How much would you need of Cyprax in a 200-litre tank?"
Well, I always said 1 litre per 100 litres, but going up to a reef, and some people thought you needed 10 litres for like 1 cup of tea water. 1 litre per 100 litres is all you need.
So 2 litres then for a 200-litre tank. Okay. And the person's asking, okay, for a reef tank? Well, yes, the answer is yes, it is.
Yes, you will see an initial rise in silicate. Remember, it's made from soda ash and sand. And you'll see silicate sharp on an ICP. Sorry, silicon sharp on an ICP. But it's very important to differentiate the differences between silicate, and biologically available silicate, and non-biologically available silicon. And the problem is with an ICP, it measures the total element. So when you use Cyprax, you'll see a rise in your silicon. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's organically available. It's determining the difference between the two, of which an ICP can't do.
Okay.
You might see some brown diatoms when you first put it on a new system, for example, extra diatoms. All right.
So that would feed that. Okay. Thank you. Right. Let's go through. What I've got here. 33 minutes. Who won the bet on Paul swearing?
There's a wager on. That was pretty good, 33 minutes.
That is pretty good, Paul.
I was so worried. I'll tell you when I was at Fan's place. I'll tell you.
I was going to ask you about. I want to know about your North American tour. A couple of things, really. Obviously, I'm a big fan of March and his Fragbox TV. Like, what's it like to work with him? And the other one I was going to ask was, are their corals better than ours? Because everybody says that. Like,
right, what's it like to be with Mark?
Mark. To meet him.
Well, I'm sure you will, because I'm sure he'll be over again. He honestly, what you see with March is what you get.
Yeah.
Right, the geezer, he's an absolute. He's probably watching, because he said I've sent him a message earlier on. He might be watching, but he is what you see is what you get. He's the craziest bastard ever. We have such a laugh. He does everything he possibly can do to piss me off. So if I say something, he'll deliver. The other day when I was with him, not that we are ever going to promote the idea that we're cruel to animals in any way or shape or form. Yeah. And I saw him putting a cleaner shrimp in his shop while I was over there. And I went, "Are you not going to acclimatise that?" And he went, "No." And he picked it up out of a bucket and threw it straight in. And I went, "You arsehole." But actually, what I found out from Patrick, the wholesaler, is that actually his salinity is matched to his salinity, and he's only 30 minutes away. But he'll just do stuff to annoy me. Yeah, he's all the fucking time. Yeah, but he's a funny. He's
brilliant together. You are brilliant together.
Absolute scream to be with. I spent a bit of time. We had an Airbnb in Niagara on the lake and went on bikes. I haven't put them videos online. There's a video. there's a video of us all on bikes. But before I got there, to go to one vineyard to another vineyard to another, and you're supposed to have little tasters of wine as you go around vineyards and all that. So what did he do? He got me and Angela electric e-assisted bikes because he thought we were old. So they had all normal bikes, but for me, we had like disabled bikes, if you like. Yeah. So, but he's honestly, he's as funny as he is. But you know, he's really switched on as well. As much as he's a funny git.
Yeah,
he's actually so switched on with some things. He's very, very good. I wouldn't say he's necessarily the world's greatest reef keeper. Right, but he is really good when it comes to things like, Paul, have you got this on your phone, like looking at your business and your sales and all things like that? He's very, very good with that. He's also he's not stuck up in any way. You know, as much as you're saying you'd love to meet him, he'd love to meet you. He's one of them sort of guys. You know, he's so approachable. I mean, when I first heard he was coming to me to do a shop to thing, I very quickly had to ring my other mate in Canada. Go, who's this fucking idiot? Who's this geezer? Sorry about that, Paul.
That's all right.
Right. I
wasn't expecting anything other than this, to be fair, so I'm cool.
Who's this geezer coming? He went, no, he's all right. Just take him to a pub. That's all I got from his other mate in Canada that knows him really well, Pat, who knows him really well. Yeah. So I took him to, like, I thought, where can I take him? I'm in Harlow, Essex. I mean, it's like gangster pubs. You might get stabbed or something. Where can I take him? So I drove him all the way out into the countryside to the poshest pub I know, which is all beautiful, about 15th century and all of that. And I got there and I said to him, it's with Paul K, who's on tonight watching now. And I said to him, I brought you here because I thought you might like this. And I suddenly thought, as I was driving out into the countryside, why am I showing a Canadian countryside? They have countryside times 500. They don't need countryside from England. I mean, countryside in England doesn't compare to countryside in Canada, you know. And and he said, well, where was you going to take me? I said, well, I couldn't take you to a pub in Harlow. I said, because I would be worried that you might end up getting stabbed. He said, no, I want to go there. You know, so no, March, he's salt of the earth. He gets all of our, you'll find with Canadians, particularly, especially on the East Coast of Toronto, that way, they're just like us. You know, in terms of one of their favourite programs is Idiot Abroad, of which I was Idiot Abroad. I love that. You know, so they get all of our humour, they understand all of our wit, and all the rest of it. Very, very easy going. He sport me to death while I was over there. He drove me around in he's a bit of a car collector, March, on the side. There you go. Yeah, he's got a nice car. So he's got a 323i 1986 BMW.
Cabriolet, isn't it?
Yeah, Cabriolet is just stunning. Yeah. So no, they really looked after us while we were there. And coral wise, do they get better corals than us? No.
They get different things that we wish we could have, maybe.
They get what it is in Canada and America, they're only subject to export CITES as a rule. Yeah. So, for example, in Indonesia, if they've got legitimate CITES, they can export. Right. So, but because the UK and Europe says, hang on a minute, there's only 45 trackies in that region, I think we should put the brakes on. We don't take them, which is responsible.
Yeah, it is.
But in the US, basically, if it's your country and you say it's all right, we'll have them. Yeah, that's the difference. Right. But the funny thing is that one of the biggest importers in America, which is Chris from ACI, he sometimes wishes that they had our system. So as much as you think the grass is greener over there, it isn't. The difference is if we're talking about aquaculture. So, for example, where Christian, obviously a signature friend, and that is very much going down that road, which is exactly what so in other words, what I'm trying to say is over there they pay 7p. If you're in Florida, for example, or even where I can't remember who it is now, Than is at Tidal Gardens, you know, they're paying peanuts for electricity because they get support, or it's a recognised industry, aquaculture in the US.
Yeah.
So they're able to set farms up or businesses up that I've got the time to aquaculture corals properly and do things the right way, of which Christian is doing it. You know, most businesses cannot operate like that in the UK. There's just simply not enough. You can do a bit like I'm doing, a little bit, you know, but you can never ever really fulfill everyone's desires, but by doing it that way. You know, when you go, not all business like that in the US, I might add. You know, I've been to a few. There's a lot of wholesalers that are bringing in a lot of wild animals as well. But generally, in terms of corals, the only things that are different that you would find in the USA to here, so they'll have a plethora of acantophilia. They'll have a plethora of Wellsophilia, Trachophilia. They'll have species that are currently banned from the EU and the UK. But whether you think that's right or not should be down to your conscience, because there's a very good reason as to why you shouldn't have those animals. If you think that an acantophilia could be 50 to 100 years old, and if they're a solitary polyp, like a scalemia, at the moment we can't have Eastern Australian scalemia, right? Or homophilia, as they're now called, so the scollies, as people know them as. And if you think that at the moment there's just purely not enough research being done on the numbers of removal, do we all want a hobby whereby we just plummet the reef and don't give a shit about it? Or do we want a hobby that's sustainable going forward? And when you start to, as I've done, start to mingle with the people in the US, you suddenly realise that there are people over there that do actually care. And they're worried also. They're worried about their future and their trade. And at one of the reef paloozas I was at in Florida, there was almost a moment whereby that there were banned all exotic imports. And that could happen. You know, so, you know, it's something to always bear in mind that, like, as much as we want corals that the US have got, should we have them? Because for me, I want a legacy business. I want to be able to pass this on to someone else, and I want the trade to stay. But if we carry on ripping stuff out without really caring about it, then we're doomed. So, but in terms of aquaculture, I think Christian would be very happy in the USA. I think, because there is one of the shops I went to, a reef creation would be like a sort of place that I
saw that. The back room, didn't they? Had the back room with all the different tanks in it.
Yeah, I mean, now he
doing the KZ stuff on that, weren't they?
Unbelievable. Actually, it's the only shop in America, Tom. I know you're a KZ fan. It's the only shop in America that I saw that was really, really good. Now, you know, I can't take it away. KZ was amazing, by the way. Right, but it was the KZ before the Coral Essentials, if you know what I mean. It's very similar in some respects. But that guy, Randy over there, he's doing what Christian wants to do in a big way. And he's properly aquaculturing things and what have you. So, as I say, that's the only real difference, you know. But in terms of, did I see anything that I thought I need to bring home? It might have been that I saw something odd, like a soft coral, like I saw Koji Wada's pink Nepthia while I was there. Yeah, but no,
you liked some of the dry goods, didn't you? If I remember rightly, that you went a bit mad about some of the stuff on the shelf that
3D printing stuff. Yeah, I saw that.
They have stuff over there that I think, oh, that would be a good idea. You know, like I've got these little mushroom boxes. I've got a bag of stuff in Unit 5. Like it's a local product, really, made in Canada, but it's a little plastic thing that you can put a mushroom in. That's got sort of like sits into a fragrance. So I mean, I know there are mushroom baskets. Johnny Aquaprint makes mushroom baskets. But these were just like the perfect little round thing that allows the light in from all areas. And, you know, there was some interesting dry goods. But honestly, genuinely, I've been to Europe. I've been to the USA. I've been here. I've been there. I've been to the Middle East. Honestly, you lot don't know
a good deal in the UK.
You don't know. Certainly on fish.
Any clams?
God, on fish, you're spoiled to death.
Yeah.
So
those clams are unreal. Like I remember the clams at the show that you had at Love to Reef. They were unreal when you had that collection.
Yeah, but fish is the big thing. If you know, rather than corals, you know, fish, you're so lucky because we sit in a very geographically perfect position. We've got all of the Indian Ocean coming over to us. We've got all of Indonesia coming over to us. All right, the fish that are expensive are things that come out of the Pacific, like flame angels and species like that, because they've got to fly over America to get to us. But in Canada, to give you an idea, trade, a purple tang's about 140 Canadian, which is about $100. Yeah, about £100. So fish are cheap. So you can imagine by the time it's retail glass, you know, it might be £250, £300 for a purple tang, and you're paying about £120 in the UK. You know, your fish in the UK are better quality in general, much higher standard than I've found in anywhere else across Europe, UK, and Canada.
That's good to know. That is really good to know.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just going to say thank you for the £5 super sticker.
Oh, wow.
Thank you
we
very
never
much.
get super stickers.
I know. Thank you very much for that.
That must be Paul.
We're way behind and it's now showtime. So apologies. Anyone who's got comments above the £5, apologies. I've missed them because I have to skip because I'm way behind. So if there's any questions in there, can you put the questions back in? Because now I want to move on to the show for the 26th of October. So, Paul, do you want to enlighten us as to what is going on that day? What, why, how, when, how much, all that kind of stuff?
Right. Okay. So I think obviously in 2019, after Coral Freaks, obviously Paul starts Love to Reef shortly after, or whenever it was. I can't remember the first ever thing. And basically, the long and short of it is that I couldn't physically pull off another show like that anymore. It was exhausting for me. No, I didn't have enough time to be able to do it and running the shop and everything else. So basically, the idea of this next event is to bridge the gap between Love to Reef, which is why I want Love to Reef involved with it, and Paul and everyone who's involved with Paul to do it. And the idea is to bridge a gap because Paul's now sort of settled on the idea of May, which is the best time to do what I call a vendor show. Right. And what I mean by a vendor show is what you expect from a fish show. So in other words, you know, there's stalls, there's livestock, there's this, and that is stressful, as I'm sure Paul would agree. But I couldn't really add anything else time-wise to what I'm doing. So it's great that Paul's doing that and continues, I hope, to do that. But what do we do in the meantime? So I thought after the success of the last show, and I think Tom was present actually at the time, I said about the idea of doing something else. But with the amount of time that I have free, you know, I thought, how can we bring the reefing community, particularly this live streams community, which I know is a large part of it, together again? So I sort of thought, I'll read some notes. Basically, I said to like bridge the gap between Love to Reef in May, of which that's what it's about, really. So in October, originally Coral Freaks was in October. Yeah, that was the idea. Yeah, but I can't pull off a vendor show with the amount of time I have anymore. I'd love to, but I can't. Paul can't do it because it's too much, I'm sure. And the one a year is enough for Paul. Unless he gets a big team to support Paul, he'll never be able to do more than one.
No, one is more than enough. That's all
exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, this event is not a vendor show. It's more of a chat show, more of a podcast, but live. But the difference is with this podcast that's live is that the community can interact with those people as well. So I'm sure many people have watched podcasts and you've sort of thought, I want to ask that question. If only I knew, if only could do it. And, you know, so I've sort of put, it's a light-hearted, non-formal event. Instead of sort of going to an auditorium where you watch a film or you watch a play or something like that, where you sit in the audience all quiet, I'm hoping that this event is about bringing some of those people that buy a ticket and give their questions to like the panel, but it's done in a sort of Jonathan Ross, Jay Leno style event. So if you imagine we're going to, first of all, I should really introduce the idea of Jeremy Gay. So Jeremy Gay is the perfect fit for this. He's not only is he an absolute gentleman, he's the first guy that sprung into my head as being the perfect UK representative you know, for our industry. Obviously, he's involved with Reef Builders. He's the editor for Reef Builders, which is an international magazine. But also, he's got a lot of personality. Basically, I don't think Jeremy doesn't know anyone. He knows everyone. So he's very fundamental in our industry and very fundamental about pushing the UK forward. Yeah, so very often he will include elements of the UK into Reef Builders, which we never had before. And Jake Adams, I'll mention this actually because no one really knows this. Jake Adams sent Jeremy a message not long before he passed away. And he really wanted Jeremy to go forward, and he really wanted him to push forward with the UK thing. He liked it. Jake Adams thought our scene was quirky. He sort of liked it, you know. So Jeremy's going to be your Jonathan Ross for the day. And then we're going to have a panel of some, I hope, people sort of really appreciate the sort of people we've come up with. So it's a light-hearted, non-formal event whereby the audience gets a chance to pose questions to some of the industry and scientists' greatest individuals. It's an inclusive podcast. Rather than sitting watching a YouTube video, here's your chance to, in effect, be part of that podcast. So basically presented by Jeremy Gay. And the big news is that while I was over in America, thanks to Laura Carlin, I have to say, Laura's been a friend of Fan Theme for years. I didn't even know who he was when he turned up at Coral Freaks, I'm going to be honest. I had this guy in a smart suit walking around my shop thinking, who the hell is he? But it was Laura had always, I mean, he was on YouTube for years before I bothered watching him. So, you know, he's obviously the consummate, excellent YouTuber, which if anyone who's into YouTube at all, which I'm sure Jay's watched. I'm sure, Jay, you must have watched his videos. Yeah.
Awesome.
So he's an absolute inspiration, fan, without a doubt. I've been everywhere, and I can tell you nothing is as good as Tidal Gardeners. That's from me. Nothing is as good. He don't think so because Fan's an absolute perfectionist, right? But honestly, there is no one better than Fan in terms of a business that I've ever visited. In that, it's just absolutely pristine, excellent. So Fan's agreed to come over, and he's going to headline it, if you like. Yeah, and we've also got Tony Vargas popping back as well to talk. So you've got the YouTuber and you've got the author. So you've got the book right, but now Tony's obviously branching into YouTube as well. So there's a sort of bridge there between books and YouTube. And Tom would have grown up with books. Paul's had a bit of a book in his life, yeah. And I'm sure Jay, you've not had many books. So what I'm saying,
complete YouTube,
yeah. So what I'm saying is there's a correlation there between one of the greatest authors, and one of the greatest YouTubers that's in our reefing history. We've also Tony Vargas, one of the first people in the US to keep an acropora alive in captivity, to give you an idea as well, you know, and also a wrasse aficionado. So, you know, there'll be questions that you can pose to Fan about his YouTube channel. There'll be questions you might want to talk to him about. I mean, of course, Jeremy as well would be, you know, introducing a part of things about his farm. We've then got also now two unknowns. It's always good to throw an unknown on the Jonathan Ross bench, you know, someone new, a break, you know. There's a couple of people. I'll just refer to them as Canada Pat and Trina. Pat and Trina. Okay. Do you know Pat, Tom?
I do, yeah. I've watched him quite a lot. Yeah.
Well, Pat basically was the guy responsible for helping come up with the LED spectrum for Radiant AB+. Right, and he's one of the most things. Now, if you think that every single person that's watching this has got a reef tank, and I can tell from Tom's tank behind it's looking like a AB+ spectrum almost, and Paul's is over there as well. So the AB+ spectrum that we see, whether you're using, it doesn't matter whose lights you're using, you're all using the typical Pat and Trina spectrum, which is a peak in the blue with a bit of this and a little bit of red, and it sloping off. Yeah, that's what we all tend to use. Well, AB+ was sort of the roots, really, of an ATI T5 fluorescent. And Pat worked with Ecotech to develop this AB+ spectrum. So you know, Pat and Trina will be over hopefully for you to talk to you about DLI, daylight intensity, and the experiments that they did with that, and why the AB plus spectrum came about. Then, of course, we've got Jesus Christ in the fish game, in the coral game, which is Jamie Craggs. So Jamie's coming back again on this event as well. But this time I've told Jamie, you're not allowed to be a scientist for the day. I've told him pretty much that really what we want from Jamie is how does what he, because Jamie's a hobbyist. Many people just see him as a scientist, but Jamie's a proper hobbyist. And what I really want to get out of Jamie, or hopefully Jeremy Gay will get out of Jamie, is how does what Jamie does correlate to you, the hobbyist? You know, at the moment,
how can you apply it?
Yeah, how do you apply it? And for example, Tom, you've got a great big tank there. Jamie tells me all the time the same. You know, our acros apparently are spawning all the time, but I've never seen it. I've had 35 years in the hobby, and I've never seen an acro spawn. So, so Jamie will hopefully teach us or tell us a little bit more about how you could perhaps, because long term, if we do think that there potentially could be an international ban, you never know. You know,
should get him to do a Blue Peter. Here's one I made earlier.
Yeah, exactly. The idea being is how do we translate the science of Jamie into something that would be usable for any one of us to have a go, even if we can't. Yeah. Even if we can't, just like we fouled with those first SBS frags, let's foul at spawning corals. Let's give it a go. Because if more of us learn how to spawn corals in captivity as well, then our hobby's secure. So, you know, just fragging alone and aquaculture alone will never fill the demands of the insatiable demand for corals in captivity. So it'd be really, really good if we could at some stage.
If enough of us do it, there's more chance that somebody's going to get it right.
Exactly. And then we'll all learn from one another, just how we did pull a decent reef tank together. So that's the whole point. Yeah. So basically, that's the event. It's really a reefing chat show, informal event. And anyone who would like to contribute sort of a question, if they can put questions to me or Jeremy Gay that they would like to ask from the audience, and that's the point, you know. So you've all seen the TV show, you know, An Audience With. It's very much based around that idea that, you know, so if Jay, you had a question about YouTubing, and for example, then put it to it, you know. And Tom, if you've got a question to Jamie about, you know, come on, how do I bleed and spawn corals? I'd love to give it a go. You know, it's the idea being that a podcast can be live, and you also can all meet up again. Yeah. You know, which is what the lovely thing I saw at Love to Reef wasn't people putting money in people's pockets. It was all of you guys together.
Community.
All getting on. And you got what you wanted. You had this community spirit, and you all having a laugh and all the rest of it. So that's what's really important. And the idea is, and I've just found out today, which is really special actually, that Aperture brands, right? So Aperture cover things like Ecotech, Neptune, AI, NIOS distribution, and all that. They've got so excited about it that they've decided that they want to help me, because this is actually a cost to me. This isn't something where I'm going to be profitable. So, you know, Paul will tell you the costs are astronomical for what I'm doing. And so was Coral Freaks. Coral Freaks was frightening for me. 6 hours, 27,000 quid, £24,000 took through the till, if you like, through that day. I lost £3,000. I don't do these things because I think that they're going to make me a packet of money. I try always to give something back to the community, you know, so that's the real thing. And hopefully invigorate you all. So you all go away back to your different parts of the UK, and then you all get excited about it. And hopefully you will go spend money in your LFS local to you. Or hopefully it will inspire you to think about, you know what, I think Rob's spawning corals. Is that right, Rob? Pelagic.
He's having a bash at it.
He's having a go. You know, Rob, you see what I'm saying? I think that's the idea. Right now, you need, I know as a dealer and also as a hobbyist, that we need to inject the hobby with fun and excitement and things like that. And I think that this reefing audience with is a little bit like, you know, giving someone the opportunity to interact with those people that you see on YouTube and you see on there. So bringing them to you. And I think that after my trips away, it was like, well, come over here and come and have a chat with our guys, you know? That's really what it's about.
And you have to be in the audience, Paul. You can't be online. It's not an online event.
We're gonna film it. Yeah, we'll come out later. But honestly, you've got to be there or be square.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a very important part. Another thing, an element of the love to reef spirit, which Paul Fish Palace brought to this, which is really important to me. Probably the most important thing is that Paul interjected Minds, the mental health charity.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, that was Jay's idea, because we was talking before that around what can we support, wanting to support a charity, and it was Jay who actually came up with the idea about Mind, and when we put it into action, like you said, I think it worked really well, Paul.
Well, I think honestly, for the people, obviously a bit like an hairdresser, when you run an LFS, everyone comes in and tells you problems.
Hairdresser? Yeah. You go to a hairdresser.
Well,
same with me.
I go and see the Turkish guys down the road and they shave me head off in about 10 minutes, but drag it out for an hour and a half and charge me 30 quid. But in that time when you're in the chair in a barber's or a hairdresser, you know, a barber or a hairdresser will always tell you about how they obviously know the ins and outs of everyone that works for the store. And running an LFS, you know, over the years, I've realised that how important this hobby is to certain individuals and people, and how it's helped them with things like addiction, how it's helped them with their mental health. You know, COVID, I mean, oh my God. Some people might think it never affected them or whatever. Actually, I think it affected everyone in some way or another.
Yeah, I think it did.
And people often go on about, you know, mental health and, you know, we were all depending on your upbringing. We weren't allowed to talk about mental health as either men or as women either. But I can't tell you how wonderful that element of love to reef is, which is why it may well be a Coral Freaks Productions AAC encouragement. But the reality is, the love to reef spirit mattered to me so much that I wanted Paul and you lot, for example, particularly involved in it. There's no point me just doing it. AAC, what's the point? You know, I don't need it. What, I'm going to lose £10,000 maybe? Who knows? Right. But the idea of bringing the love to reef spirit, you know, at the end of the day, LFS's future across the UK depend on you, the hobbyists. And if you haven't got anything exciting to look forward to, then what's the point? So, you know, that's the real point. But that really comes down to you guys, really, as the encouragement. So, you know.
So, as a Yorkshireman, Paul, how much is it?
20.
How much? How much is the ticket? Yeah. And how do you go about getting them? And are they available yet? Or?
It's 25 quid a ticket now, which is cheaper than most frags, so no whinging. £5 of that ticket, and that won't even cover 50%.
Yeah, free frag was that? Sorry, 25 quid in a free frag. You know?
£5 of the ticket we're going to put into Paul's Love to Reef fund, where he gets extra money from his firm and all of that. There's a limited number of tickets, though, folks. I ain't joking, because it's a sit-down event, a bit like Coral Freaks was. We can only really have 150 to 200. And I already know that about 30, 50 people from my trade already want a ticket. So if you want a ticket, I wouldn't mess about. I've only got a few weeks to do it. That's it. Connor did it today. Now we obviously haven't listed the people that are attending on it. That will be edited this week, because we didn't want to release the idea until we spoke tonight about Fanfine and Tidal Gardens and Jamie and Pat and Trina and all that. But we'll get that edited this week. But it's 25 quid. 5 quid will go to Mind charity. Paul will do something with the Mind side of things. As well, and try and increase that as well. So the tickets have been put on the website, but just like before with Paul's method, and Paul's going to help me with this. So you buy your ticket, and then 2 weeks beforehand, Paul will send you your e-ticket, just the same as Love to Reef. So Paul will handle that side of it for us. Just knock your. Let's get selling them. Really.
Awesome. I'm going to buy mine straight after the stream.
Absolutely. So if you go onto the website and you will see there where it says events, then go on to tickets and it loads it. The earlier version said out of stock. So that was a photo I took earlier. Now it says add to basket. So you should be able to order them from
directly from the website. Yeah. Awesome. That looks really good. That looks really good. And obviously, AAC will be next door as well. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have some offers on the day, but I mean, I think it's going to kick off at about the day. We might open it a little bit early because obviously we're going to have the so there'll be the Aperture brands there for you, and there'll be people there in the separate. If you remember last time, Jay, we had the talks in the rear hall, or Tom, talks were in the rear hall.
Yeah.
But it's going to be in reverse this time. You can have the talks in the main hall. The reefers audience in the main hall, and in the back room there'll be teas and coffees and drinks and things like that. And in there we'll have some of the Aperture staff, and Exodus will be there hopefully, D&D will be there hopefully. But it's not a vendor event. Remember, the idea is it's a day for you to just all meet up, have a chat, have a laugh, ask some questions, maybe meet your idol. Something like that, and have a handshake and realise that these people are just reefers, just like you and I, So,
my birthday that week, so I've got to come.
Wow.
Good. Are you staying in a special hotel?
I will definitely be staying in the hotel. I'm coming down on the Friday and the Saturday. You grace with me for 2 days, I'm afraid.
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know that other people will be staying in that hotel. But rooms are running out fast.
Yes, I'm on it. I'm on it.
So as I said, there's obviously a number of hotels around Harlow. If people need any help with that, if they get in touch with AAC, we'll try and help them find rooms. But as I said, I know that the rooms will fill up quickly. But we're hoping to kick off, I think, we'll probably open the doors like Paul normally does about 10:30 in the morning. We're hoping to kick off about 11:30. We'll probably have an interlude, a break for after an hour and a half, and have a tea, coffee, and what have you. And then we'll resume for another hour and a half. And then there'll be a chance to do it. If you want to do a little bit of shopping in AAC, that will be open for a couple of hours and what have you. But as I said, it's not about AAC that day. It's hopefully just a day's fun is what it's about. All right. But there'll be offers on, I'm sure. Barry won't resist it. My manager, he'll be hot on with the discounts that day, I'm sure. But ultimately, it's about you all having a fun.
Paul, there's just a couple of questions here. So people have put about postage and packaging, and it says just gone to buy, and it's got postage only available, I think.
No, you just don't ignore it. Just buy it.
Just go for it.
Then
there we go. So you can.
There you go. See, someone's he's already bought one. You ignore the postage and packing. It's just nonsense. There you go. It's another one who's bought it.
Yeah, just ignore that, because whatever you pick, the ticket will be sent out via email.
Yeah, it'll go via email from Paul Fish Palace to you. You'll have an e-ticket, and then you'll get a band when you turn up. I've just seen a load of streams coming up on my PC of people buying tickets. So it's, oh my God. It's going, honestly, I ain't joking. I'm not making it up. Honestly, I can see at least 10 of you already have bought tickets, I think. It says
postage is $7.99. So choose click and collect.
Just click and collect, but just you won't get a ticket in store. All right. Yeah, I'll have to.
I need to jump on it now.
I didn't realise how quick this would go. At the end of the day, ignore. Oh my word! Just have Ryland. Right, Drippy Reef Geek has just paid postage and packing the mug.
Why does that not surprise me?
There's a surprise. Yeah, absolutely. He's probably done that to get attention.
Now I'm going to have to refund him now. That's the worst thing about it. Look, don't pay postage and packing. Ignore it. Put collect from store. I'll get Connor to change that this week. Just ignore it, and then it will go through. So.
Cool. So
I know. It's all right. I've just told them. Angela's just come out to see me. Yeah, just don't pay for postage and packing. Everyone is. I've seen $32.99 coming up. We'll all refund you if there is. So do not pay postage and packing. We forgot that bit. Just collect in store for now. Okay.
Yeah. Interest free for 3 months. That's all right.
Interest free as well, you Yorkshireman. Yeah,
There's
too
nothing
late.
you can't refuse.
Connor should have thought of that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No worries. As I say, anyone who's paid postage and packing will just do you a quick refund, but don't worry about it. Just pay your 25 quid collecting score, and then what will happen is Paul will send the e-ticket out. Okay.
Yeah. So it says here about the event being recorded. So I think you've covered up already, haven't you, Paul? In terms of hopefully we'll film it and then it'll go out on a
we're looking at a specific YouTuber to film that, and we hope that and then the film will be distributed amongst those that are contributing towards the show. But we hope to film it. We're currently discussing that. I have got a stage put in, and I have got, I hope, a decent sound system. There are still things that we're ironing out. The idea of recording it. One of the problems we've got at Latin Bush Centre is the hall is quite echoey. Yeah. So we're hoping we can try and improve upon the sound. Okay. Yeah, honestly, you would not believe it, guys. The tickets are flying. I must have seen at least 15 or 20 already in the time we spoke. So that'll give you an idea.
At this rate, Connor won't need to change his site.
No.
Right, sorry, I've just gone quiet. I just booked my hotel.
It's getting tight. The rooms. I'll be honest with you, Tom.
I love that. I love that hotel. It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 around Harlow. There are that particular hotel you stay in is actually where some of the guys that will be at the show will be staying.
The Green Man is awesome. Sleepover.
That's it. Yeah. So I think you'll find there'll be others staying in the hotel already that are in Harlow. So.
I booked a twin room though, so the lads can have a bid off war as to who's going to share a room with me.
Oh yeah,
they can pay the highest bidder, right?
Highest bidder. It's like Oasis tickets.
Yeah. Well, funny, someone put on my personal Facebook today or something when I announced it that will these tickets be like Oasis tickets and go up? But at this rate, they might have to. Oh my word! Honestly, I'm really touched. Thank you all, anyone who's watching this, because. I can't believe how many people have. It's just going non-stop. Honestly, you'd not believe it. It's just phenomenal. I'm really touched, actually. Keep looking at the corner of my PC, and all I keep getting on Outlook is new order, new order, new order, new order. It's just phenomenal. Thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully it'll be a really good day. So,
I think it's something different. I don't think anyone's done anything like this before, Paul. Obviously, there's been vendor shows, which you mentioned earlier about Love to Reef, and we've got Aqua H and things like that. But I don't think anyone's done something like this. So I think to do something very different is really good, because you just have a different concept, doesn't it?
Well, the other thing I hope from this, which is what I said about Coral Freaks, which you did do it, Paul, is I hope someone takes it on from me. The idea is I start it and then you lot roll off with it. So in other words, why not do a reefing audience within the North? Why not do a reefing audience within Wales? Why not do a reefing audience anywhere? You can go and do this. This is the whole point. The whole point is that not every show needs to be a vendor show. Vendor shows are full of stress and worry and electrics and water and things that can go wrong, and stress and worry and grief. Yeah, aren't they, Paul?
Hang on a minute. Isn't that running a reef tank?
Yeah, exactly. But now imagine it
similar, isn't it?
Now imagine showing the public that reef tank. It's like I always say about our display tank in AAC. It's like showing your dirty pants. It's got to be right every day, and that puts the pressure on. And not every reef tank is right every day of the week. So the idea of a reefing audience is that it could be a reefing audience with Jay's Real Reef. It could be a reefing audience with somebody, with whoever, signature phrase. It could be a reefing audience with whoever. Just go and do it. Just go off and do it. And get yourself a Churchill and start off with it. And the idea being that rather than sitting there and listening to talks, which Machner, as amazing as Machner was, which I love. I mean, I've sat in many talks and watched Chad Clayton talking about reef nutrition and breeding fish and things. But the idea is that I'd like to see more interactive things, because the hobbyist is what the hobbyist is really what's important to the trade.
Sorry.
She'll love that. Yeah. She'll love it. Yeah, that'll do. We'll keep the £7 then.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's the whole idea. I really hope Tom, maybe you, maybe Jay, you know, sort of further up north, maybe you go and do a reefing audience with. And
yeah, I think
you might have an LFS.
Yeah,
bring them in.
We're definitely going in that right direction. I think I'm a big, you know, I've not been in the hobby as long as some people, but I've been in it long enough to know that it's what keeps people in the hobby and keeps people getting into the hobby and staying in the hobby is the community. And for me, you know, the barbecue, yeah, there were 20 of us and it's all in my backyard as such, but we've got to keep pushing forward. There's no point moaning about the Yanks and how great these reefer paloozas are if we're not going to prepare to try over here and all make the effort.
And the other thing is as well is don't think it's out of reach. You know, these sometimes I've sort of spoke to people in the past in the shop. They go, oh, you know what, you know, like we said, what's March like, or what's Stan like? And I went, well, talk to them. They're normal people.
Yeah.
They're not. You know, we're not talking about Madonna or Sting or something like that here. You know, these are just regular people that are just like me and you, and ultimately they, you know, they've just sort of, you know. So I would really. You know, positively encourage a reefing audience in Tom's fish room. Fantastic. You know, so, you know, a reefer's car boot at the same time. Well, that's actually another thing, actually, Gill's Aquarium. One of the things I've thought about doing at LBC, Latin Bush Centre, is a reefing jumble sound.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, AAC's got a garage worth of stuff.
A lot of people have,
of commercial. I could do the commercial end of the jumble sale, yeah. But I'm sure that, you know, one of the things that you could think about, you know, not every reefing show needs to be a vendor show. It doesn't need to be the usual standard of, you know, supplier and retailer and things like that. You know, a reefing show could literally just be, you know, about a jumble sale. How much stuff have we all got that actually might be good for? You mentioned, Tom, about flogging an old RO unit to Drippy earlier on. 20 quid or something, you know. And then Jay, I'm sure you've got a cupboard that's got bits in it that you can put some
a few bits.
And so maybe that's the next one, you know. Maybe that's the next love to reef is the love to reef.
The jumbo cell.
Yeah, but obviously, you know, you have to have some sort of declaration of electrical safety somewhere along the line, you know. Buyer beware, you know. But,
at your own risk, if you get electrocuted, it's on you.
No, but we're all grown-ups, and I'm sure there's an awful lot.
That's my ticket booked.
What's that?
Done. Just book my ticket.
I'm in as well. I'm in.
Done it. I'm in.
Yeah, you're in.
I'm
Are
in.
you staying down, Jay, or not?
I don't know actually. I don't know. I might
before he puts his price up in his room. I'll share with you, Jay.
I mean, I don't know how much the rooms are down there. They're probably not cheap, I guess. Down in the southeast. I'm thinking about it. I'll see.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's around about 3 or 4 hotels around the
down there.
Yeah.
St. Paul as Rodney and Barry as Del Boy. Funny, Sam.
Collecting store, absolutely. Someone else is booked.
Excellent.
Nice one, Alex.
Will Mind Charity be involved for the jumble sale? Can women bring along old wigs they might have lying around for Tom and put a smile on his multi?
Right. Can I just interject for a minute, right? So tomorrow I was planning on going to see a couple of friends of mine. We were going to go around, not that I'm proud of it, Doncaster for a few beers, blah, 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 bit of a catch up. Everything was booked, taxis, everything was arranged. This idiot rings me up, but says, I'm thinking of coming up. What are you doing tomorrow? I was like, well, I've got things planned. It was like, well, no. He said, I'm thinking of coming up. It's Kaz's birthday next week, and I'm going to fetch her a present up. I was like, that's 3 hours away. He was like, yeah, but we're going to go around some of the shops. I went, there ain't any shops up here. He was like, well, I'm going to come away. So I've now cancelled my boys' day out tomorrow on the Ale, and this idiot's coming to my house. And Mum, you can't hear the Hoover, but she's upstairs at the minute, hoovering the spare room out, because he's coming all his way to fucking York.
And don't tell me it was him who left the room in a dirty state last time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Trippy.
Anyway.
Oh, God.
Right, what else we got here? Jay's got homework to mark. Christian all book. Great. It'd be great to see you.
Nice one. Yeah.
Awesome, Christian. Yeah, that'd be good.
There you go. You can't take the Yorkshire off the live stream, can you? I'll rent my van out for you, Jay.
Rent a camper van. Yeah, that'd be quite good, actually.
There's another one. Bring a tent and stay on the grass road AAC.
We did have a camper van last weekend or the weekend before staying out outside AAC. I don't know who it is, but someone came down for our sale and parked their camper van out the front.
Can I ask how things are going next door, Paul, with the
the coral farm?
I'm desperately trying to make sure it all looks pretty and nice for our foreign visitors when they come over, as you can imagine. It won't have livestock in it, maybe a few horses by then, but it's coming together. I've got Joe Chambers who's helping us put it all together on the plumbing side and all that at the moment. We're just working on it. We've got all the Neptune stuff to do, and we've got, but biologically, I'm cautious, so I don't want to start emptying out one farm into another farm until I'm happy that the quality of the water's right and everything else. But it's coming along quite nicely. It's starting to look pretty.
You've put the 3D printed housing on the tridents, haven't you? On the end, I've noticed.
Yes, yeah, that's the
windows.
Yeah, that bit that Paul's just put up there is where we're the fry area in aquariums for the fry. For the seahorses, but on the opposite side of the room is where we've got the coral tables. And what we've done this time is that I've at the moment where I've got the farm at the moment, I've got 2 systems, and originally I thought that'd be enough, but now funny enough, March and Fan have been sort of taking the piss out of me a little bit. But the idea being that I can learn to bring animals into one system, make sure that they're safe, clean, and what have you, then moving them into another system, safe and clean, and moving. They're going, you won't ever do that long term, and what have you. But ultimately, I want to try and bring a better standard to the farm, and also somewhere nice for me to work, because that's where I'll be hiding.
You said on the video you did with Thans at Tidal Gardens, you're doing three-stage QT or something?
Well,
One
of the things that I really hate is when someone says, I sell pest-free corals, because how do you believe them? No, because every year I find a new pest. I think there's not enough honesty with what goes on in the trade. And, I've discovered new species of pests, right, only in the last year that I'd never seen before in my 35-year history.
Wow.
So watch this space. You're never going to quarantine out bacterial issues. That's the first thing. Yeah. There are so many more things that we don't know. So to cock off about being pest-free could be your demise. Yeah. If Fanny's, what I love about Fanny's is that he's completely honest. He will tell you, how much he's been in it again. And when I went to Eye Catching Corals, unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to film at Eye Catching Corals, nor was Mark, nor was Fan. Eye Catching Corals is the size of Wembley Stadium for corals.
Wow.
It is enormous. They've got one room that's the size of Latin Bush Centre, whole hall and back hall, that only has bubble tip anemones. And every single system in the bubble tip anemone room is a separate system. Can you imagine that? They're all sort of they're all like these. They're all sort of like 500 litre water boxy reefer type tanks, and they're all individual. So they've got their sunset coralados in one. They've got another type, a Nexus bubble tip in another. They've got a Nexus graft in another, because they've learned that over the years that bubble tips can't stand bubble tips alone. So, they're already learning about viruses, and that's what I'm saying. I've learned with seahorses, for example, so that, that you can have pipefish. I had a group of 6 Jan's flame pipefish that I brought to breeding condition that I was mixing with erector seahorses, and they just fell out of the water. They were fine. I'd had them for like 3 to 6 months. But there are viruses that people don't understand. So, yes, you might be pest-free, but you might not know about viruses yet, or bacterial issues, or the latest nudibranch. In the only about a year ago, I discovered a new gonorrhea in nudibranch. Yeah. So, you know, but people don't understand. You can't expect every LFS in the land to be at a standard, that you think that they should be at when when we don't even know what we're looking at. There's new pests around the corner all the time. It's down to you, the hobbyist, to inspect your animals and dip appropriately and examine them, because there's only, even with all the will in the world of people that care about their sows of what they make, they don't know that they might be passing on a virus or a bacterial issue or a this or a that. So, you know, as I said, you know, the idea of that would be something that I think would be really worthy of posing a question to Than. So if there's any of you out there that want to talk about quarantine, because Than's done it all. Than's tried all this, you know, pest-free, this and all the rest of it. But ultimately, when you get to a certain scale, it's nigh on impossible to police that long term. It only takes one drop of water.
One molecule.
It only takes, you know, it's that, you know, even with me, I'm very conscious on the 3 systems that I've got, that even the cleanup crew that I brought into it, I made sure, even the live rock that I used as the bed for these seahorse aquariums, I thought I was pest free. And then all of a sudden I get hydroids that kill baby seahorses. And then the next minute, I've got planaria. Where did they come from? I've not introduced nothing to these systems for months, if not a year or more. And then planaria turn up. You know, some people say it's the brine shrimp eggs. Well, the brine shrimp eggs are dry. You know, so like I said, never believe that, you know, ultimately that you can be completely free, because there's always something to bite you on the arse just round the corner. You know.
Absolutely. Right, I've got some other questions here, Paul. So what's filtration in the sumps?
In which sumps?
About your farm, I think.
On the farm, on the new farm, basically I've gone old school, I'm afraid. I've used 75% dead live rock to 25% live rock, basically. So I was very fortunate that Joe done a job for me in Chigwell. It turned out that the house that had been bought by someone else, and they were clearing out a reef tank to build a new reef tank, but it turns out I sold the reef tank 25 years ago. So it had a load.
Is that rock you had in the unit that you showed us?
Isn't it? Yeah,
it was dead. It was dead Fiji rock, right? So, so I've used some new Indonesian premium live rock with around about 25% to 75% dead. They're all currently going through the process now. That's why I said I don't know when it'll be quite ready. Maybe winter, maybe Christmas, maybe January. I'll start stocking it with corals. I don't know. Right. So I've got a bit of a way. If it was all live rock, I'll probably have animals in it within 8 weeks from now. But because it's not, I'm probably going to sit tight. At the moment, I'm dragging phosphate levels down to a respectable level. And then we'll see where we go from there. So live rock is the biological filter.
Someone else bought a ticket, so thank you, Adam. Paul, are you running closed loop on the new frag systems after seeing fans set up? If so, any advice or anything for a newbie in the loopy scene?
No, I'm not using closed loops, because I always find closed loops eventually, unless you're prepared to go out and buy a biz pumps and all that all the time. I mean, I use a biz. I use them to drive the fish system, and, you know, $2,500 a pump and all that. I don't think that there's a reliable enough pump unless it is something like an Abiz or an E-Flow to do a closed loop. I don't want leaking pumps. So I know you can mount them wet in the sump and still do a closed loop, but I don't like extra holes drilled in a tank where they're not needed. I've seen problems with leaks over years. I'm using the Ecotech Vectras to just, like Jamie Craig's actually inspired me with this one. Jamie Craig's on the spawning facility uses Vectras instead of Vortex to create a lot of the tidal flow. You can program a Vectra to do what a Vortex does. So I'm using them as the big push, but also Red Sea as well. I'm using a lot of their reef waves. They were very kind to me, Red Sea. So I'm using Red Sea reef waves for surface water movement to break the break the LED light. And I'm using Vectra as the undercurrent. I'm thinking as well of maybe going back to a little bit of my roots and diving into some new models of tons pump as well.
I've got to say, I think Tunsy pumps are underrated. I know we've had this discussion before. I love Tunsies. I think they're really good.
I've had a tons pump. I've had tons pumps in the AAC DT now 8 to 9 years, and I never even opened them. How about that?
Yeah.
And then you got the wave box, haven't you, in the Red Sea Reef for 420? And I just think that's fantastic. That obviously the wave, you get the wave. I don't think anything else can. The Vortex can do it similar, but not as well as that.
The Vortex is still a Rolls Royce laminar flow pump, great for mid-water flow, but I still think that the Tons pump overall, from my experience over the years, offers probably the most versatile flow. You know, if you want to angle it towards your surface, you can. If you want it laminar flow, you can. If you want to set a timed wave, you can. So I love Vortex. I love really MP40 for me. I know some people don't like them, but I think the MP40 is like such a beautiful product. You take one out of the box for the first time and you think, this is like handmade. You know, you can't beat a Vortex. The Vectra really I chose because I like the software that works with a Vortex, if you know what I mean, to get the similar sort of tidal push.
You can have different flow.
No, I'm not a big closed loop fan, I have to say. I'm not. When I do big systems, big custom systems, or Joe does now, we do use a closed loop system, but we usually have like a fake weir box where we would draw the water from. And then return the water, if you know what I mean. So it's slots at the bottom, slots at the top, but there's no hole in the bottom. So it's like a fake weir, right, where we might draw water through it. But I don't like putting extra holes in a reef tank, to be honest with you. I've seen David Saxby, for example, when I've been round his before. He's got loads of pumps underneath that tank. To me, it worries me. He's had leaks. He's had problems. I just don't want to go down the holes of having any more holes than I need.
It's a fair comment. I got a comment there. Paul Cyrus is a legend. The Malpipe fish he sorted for me gave birth today.
Superb. Excellent.
Very nice.
Very. I'd love to be out with him. It's only Cyrus who can see these little tiny bristles that are on the nose of a tiny pipefish. So it's always quite difficult to sex a pipefish if you've got no eyes like me now.
What's this one from Christian? I don't believe that at all. We put so much effort and time into cleaning corals, meeting pests and pathogens. If you don't think it's possible, you haven't lost the stock developing the methods.
Don't understand.
I think that's relating to pest free.
QT.
Right.
QT.
Yeah. I mean, look, the obvious pests, yes. But the less obvious stuff that we know about, maybe not. You know, in other words, you can bring a hardy coral, and certainly the subject matter that that Christian's using there for what the subject is doing. But when you start diving into the world of a lot of diversity with other corals, you know, there are bacterial issues and there are viruses that we don't know about yet. We can't say we know it all. Anyone who says they know it all and know how to do it, no way. Yeah, because we don't know it all. I'm learning every single day. That's the way I like to think myself, is that, you know, yes, you might know about acro eating flatworm. Yes, you might know about Monty eating nudibranch. Yes, you might know about this, but you don't know about the one that we don't know about yet. So, you know, we don't know it all. They're just round the corner. That's what I've discovered. I mean, I had, for example, a nudibranch around about 4 years ago that I found on the base of plugs, right? And it was a green and yellow one. And I was really worried about it. I was thinking, where's this come from? I don't know where this is coming. It just turned up one day and I didn't know it. It turned out it was harmless. It wasn't doing anything wrong at all. It didn't seem to be causing any trouble. And then it just disappeared. But like I said, there are things that turn up, particularly with, I saw a Gonopora, for example. You know, it was only about 4 or 5 years ago from a Tonga shipment. So I'd never seen anything eating Gonopora before. And then there was a Tonga shipment that came in. And there was this, I noticed on these gonnies, they weren't doing quite so well. And there was a tiny little nudibranch that was on them like that. And it was actually a wholesaler that actually I think Christian and me have used before, but it was on a Tonga shipment. And it was eating all the pink Gonopora, all the red Gonopora. And it was too late. It was already in. So I said, you never really absolutely, you can dip, you can scrub, but you don't know where. It only takes, I mean, some of the newer species of acro-eating flatworm, for example, we're so used to seeing them laying neat rows, their eggs, right? But ultimately, there are aquapore eating flatworm out there now that I know that don't necessarily lay in neat rows. So there are obvious. If you think you know it all, watch your space. If you're like me and you think I'll have an open mind, then I think that will serve you well, because I know that there are viruses. Yeah, and we don't know. There's very little that we know about viruses. I mean, there's one obvious virus that a lot of LFS may or may not have encountered, and there's a cataphilia virus, for example. So if you mix, for example, Australian cataphilia with Indonesian cataphilia, something will go wrong pretty soon. And you might have said, if you've ever had a cataphilia and it's blown up, and the tentacles become short and it looks like a cushion. Yeah, it's like a cushioning sort of thing. And then slowly it shrinks away and a demise. So I think it affects Sclerogyra, it affects cataphilia, and a few other species. But it can only, and then we noticed that even when you've got rid of those species out of that system, if you put in another cataphilia in, it will get the virus, even though there's no other ones in there. Wow. So I think it can hang around for at least 6 to 8 months. And I've had to leave systems in the shop before where we cannot now put, for example, Indo cats in there. We can put them in there, but we can't put them in there. So, as I said, you never know it all. That's all I would say.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Jay, your tape is looking great after your misfortune.
Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, it has turned a little bit of a corner, actually. Yeah, it has. It's starting to look a bit better. But what I would say there is if you've got a dodgy pump that kind of is intermittent, just swap it out and don't run the risk like I did and went away, because it just gave up the ghost, as it were. But yeah, because it's a little Red Sea return pump, so I've swapped it out now. In fact, I bought a return pump from AAC that time, Love to Reef, so I swapped it out. Yeah, but.
Nice one. So did any of the Goniopora recover? Because I know you was concerned.
No, you can still probably see it. This one just down here, it's still like a golf ball. It's not coming back. But these two are fine. There's two here that are really happy. But yeah, this one.
Good.
It's gone. It's no good. But yeah, cheers, John. Yeah, it's looking a lot better than it did.
Absolutely. Just moving on. So regarding tickets, I will be sending out an e-ticket to the email address about 2 weeks before the event, which those who've been to Love to Reef before, that's what I usually do anyway. And then you just bring the ticket on your phone on the day and we'll just tick you off on the list. So that is that. Just going through. Tunzi are German.
Can't go wrong.
Just going through some of the other comments. Thanks to Angela and Barry for the warm welcome, as always, down at AAC this morning. Thank you for that. We don't know what we don't know. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Don't talk about the main pest in our reef tanks, and that's us. Absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree with that. Christian Stan have been working on cold biome reset for years, Paul, with great success in recent years. It's not new to me. It's fair enough. And then Jez, I've experienced the cat virus and it's lethal. Toxic warfare. Right, just going through. We're coming towards the end. What flavour is your vape, Paul?
What a random question.
It's pineapple ice.
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Pineapple ice.
Okay.
Pineapple ice. There you go.
Okay. So just a couple of things. So Paul, you're obviously you've got the extension on the farm, should we say? And so when do you think you'll have corals for sale online? I know you get asked that all the time.
Every day he gets asked this question about.
Do you post? Was always the one that used to wind you up on Facebook.
Oh, no.
Do you post?
Yeah. Now I've got it abroad. Now I'm getting.
I know they were asking on the live stream, weren't
they? Canada. I really do hope that we're doing something by winter, maybe early 2025. That's what I really hope. But obviously, I want to make sure that their corals are right. I don't just want to. We could start selling tomorrow, couldn't we? But like, I want to make sure that the corals are right. I don't want them going out the door, and I want them to arrive. There's all sorts of things I want to make sure are perfect when people receive them. So there's no, as I said, I've often said to people go, why don't you do it? But well, first of all, it's extra labour. We don't need to do it. The long and short of it is we don't really need to post corals online. Yeah, that's the reality of it. The store's okay. We can always do with extra sales. We're not going to be big-headed and say we don't need the business, right? Because we do need everyone's business in order for to develop the staff team and wages and all sorts of things. Of course, we need the business, but the reality is, in some respects, we always prefer the idea of people choosing with their eyes. That's the first thing, so that they get it, so there's no confusion, and people always it's like sending apples out. If you've ever had a shopping delivery, so they're never going to choose the same vegetables that you would have chosen for your shopping delivery, are they? So I've always been very conscious of the idea that people if they want the best thing they can do is choose the best themselves, But I think that once we got a sort of secure place where I can be happy that the corals are perfect before they're going out the door, then that's why there's always been a bit of a delay. But I wanted a new area. Unit 4 is it's not very tidy. It's not ideally organised. It doesn't have sort of like a area that I could set aside for sort of like a WYSIWYG selection, if you like. We could interject in the shop and start doing. When I was in Canada, I bought loads of code numbers so we could get pictures with a number that to correlate to online and things like that. So there are things in place already to maybe bring some of that to the store as well. But we've always had this concern that if, say, for example, Paul, you walked in and you went, oh, look, I really like that. Can I have it, Paul? Yeah, sure, yeah. And you sell it, and then you've just found out that Tom's just bought it online. Yeah, and then I have to write to Tom and say, dear Tom, I'm really sorry, but that lovely acro that you wanted has just been bought by Fish Palace. God, bastard. So now that's a polite way. Yeah, but if you can imagine, customers will grade you on how you so to write. If you write, there's only so many times you could tell them, well, it died before I managed to sell it to you.
Yeah.
You don't want to start telling lies. You don't want to start, just to smooth a situation over. I want people to have the experience the same as they would do in the shop, and that means ultimately giving them the same level of experience, but from the shop. The other thing is, it's easy to do online coral sales when you ain't open 6-7 days a week. It's really easy. Doing online when you're not open, it's easy. That's why Fan won't open. I dug him out in his podcast because they keep nagging me about selling corals online, and I said, well, Fan, open your shop up. Open this place up. No chance.
The noise level would go above
Laura's the same. She won't open her place. Anyone who does it on Christian, I believe, is only open of a weekend or something like that. So all these people that do mostly online, they're not open to the public 6 days a week. You try running a business where you've got the public flooding into your shop every single day of the week, and you've got to have a show on every single day of the week to a standard that you, the hobbyist, wants. You can't do corals online and have a successful retail business without having some space set aside. So, for example, I do know that there are shops that are selling online right now that are good shops in the UK, but we're talking about volume of people and turnover.
You've got to have the staff as well, aren't you? Like we said earlier at the beginning.
What's that?
You've got to have the staff as well, like we said at the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, I've just lost, as I said, I've just had a member of staff today leave, unfortunately, which is starting, but, that would have been ideal to potentially handle that. Now I've got to rejig the staff team, and I've got to find new people to help me. And what have you do it. And it's not easy finding people, it is the reality of it, in terms that are passionate enough to that want to, you know, it's not an easy job. Everyone thinks that working in LFS is easy or working in a coral farm is easy. I mean, Jay, you had experience of that at Signature, didn't you?
It is really tough.
Right,
really
it's actually a lot harder than people think. Everyone thinks it's
that's just work, Jay, because you're a teacher. That's just work.
It was a shock to the system, you know, the longer day. But I spent 2 days.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, though. It's that, you know, it's that old analogy. Like, would I want that to be sent to me? Well, if no, then why send it to somebody?
Absolutely. And you know, at the moment, you know, for me as well, it's like restaurants. If we had all had the choice to go to a restaurant and it say it was 50 quid or 100 quid or something like that, a meal or whatever like that, and you got the choice, you get a 3-star or 5-star, but it's the same price. Which one are you going to go to? The 5-star or the 3-star? What are you going to do? Deliberately choose just because you're difficult or different and go to the 3-star? No, you're not. You're going to go to a 5-star. And in order to lower the doing online coral sales ultimately could damage the reputation of currently AAC, and I don't want to be involved in that. So
you'll end up sending frags out online that look nothing like what they did on the picture. But like when you go to McDonald's and the burger looks really good behind the counter.
I'll
get it, it's kind of shit.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'm expecting that anyway, because unless you're running similar lighting and things like that, it's always going to be difficult. And someone's perception of so for me, like, I've never had an issue with filter shots, for example, because I can see through them. And anyone who's had a reef tank for a number of times, it always makes me laugh. You know, filter shots being like, oh no, you wouldn't do filter shots. You know, well, we're using white balance on a TG camera. It's no different in so many ways. You're still fiddling with it. It's not as you saw it as it was. Yeah, you're still fiddling. It's still the same. It's just in a different way. So for me, I can see a coral for what it is through whatever medium that you want to take the picture with. But of course, beginners can't. So the danger you've got is someone new coming on who's never absolutely, you know, not kept corals for very long, and then they'll see a filter shot, for argument's sake, and to assume that that's what it's going to look like in daylight hours, you know, under 10K, for example. No, it don't. You know, so you know, there's a difficult. I like actually one of the things I saw at Fan's website. If you look at Tidal Gardens website, one of the things I really love is this way that he's got a slider that shows like from sort of 14K to 20K is the slider. So it shows the coral under sort of white light and then it fades into blue light. But the other thing is that I've often found that people that whinge about filter shots are the first people to take a filter shot at their own tank. So, you know, it's, you know, you see, what do you do? Do you know, do it under... do you do it, you know? So there's some difficult things there for me to cross the road. Do we do like a 14K shot and a 20K shot? Do we just, you know, that sort of thing? I don't know yet. They're all the little bits that I still need to do. But certainly getting the animals safe is what I really want to do, for, you know, moving them from one unit to another unit.
Well, smooth skin came up here all right. You sent me.
What?
That smooth skin.
Yeah. What about the other one that's settled in, the little tenuous thingy settled in?
Yeah, it's fine, mate. Yeah, that cartoony one. Yeah, it's fine. Bang on, mate. Thank you. Yeah.
Good. As I said, that was a little experiment. So, you know, I just wanted to see how it was. As the frag did the frag fall off of its floating base or not?
No, it was all right. It's fine.
It's a little experiment.
It's all right. Yeah. What? Hang on a minute. How was the experiment?
Well, actually, I've actually experimented. There are a few people that I do actually post corals to because I trust them. So there's the other side of it. There's the other side of it as well. What you can do?
The postage was great. The packaging was great. It was just the courier driver was horrendous.
Trippy.
This is what you're going to get. Of course he was. He shipped it up himself, didn't he? Hand delivered.
He told me, I packed it up for him. He said, I'm going to be up there in about 7 hours' time. I said, I thought you was going up there straight away.
No, he picked it up at 10 o'clock, then went to work and then drove up to me with it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right. I've got time for one more question. Would this event be good for those just starting out in the hobby?
I think so, because they're going to get an insight into first of all, it's not always about what you're looking at. It's about the people that you meet. And there'll be an opportunity, a cup of tea. And let's be honest, I'm such a friendly bunch of people that if you're thinking of getting into the hobby, one of the things, or just got into it, one of the things you should do is if, you know, just walk, just don't be shy. Walk up and say hello. I've just I watched you on there, or I've seen you there, or I was hearing you talk, or whatever, and shake an hand and introduce yourself and say I've only just got into the hobby, and people, anyone who's decent will welcome you in. And
can you have a word with the cafe though? They didn't do sausages. Love to reef, just did bacon. Bit disappointing.
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't know how much time there will be for food, Tom. You might have to bring your lunch. You might have to bring a lunch box with you.
Absolutely. Right, we are out of time. Paul, been a pleasure as always. I'm sure. Fantastic. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of love in there for you in terms of the comments. A lot of people that have bought tickets. I think it's going to be another great event. So really looking forward to it. And if you haven't got your ticket, then go to the AAC website and look on events and look under tickets, and you can purchase a ticket. And remember, £5 of the 25 quid goes towards the charity Mind as well. So that's important to all of us about supporting that. But Paul, thank you as always.
Yes. No, thank you very much for having us on. I really appreciate it. Lovely.
And thank you for everyone that's joined. We had, I think, at one time over 115 people, which I think Jay might be a record for this stream. I think
that is definitely a record for Friday night.
He hold a record, I think, about 110, and he might be more than 115 because I haven't seen on the phone what that is. So, Paul, you bring them all out as always, and so it's been great insight and everything as well. And I think it's going to be a great event, amongst other things. So, thank you guys for joining. Some great comments, loads of comments. And thank you everyone for watching, and also for contributing. If I've missed any comments or any questions, I do apologise. I try to get as many in as reasonably possible within the 2-hour window that we have. But thank you very much. And hopefully see a lot of you at either Aqua H or see you certainly on the 26th of October. So for now, have a great reefing weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Take care.